Before we dive into this life-changing revelation, I'm curious, what time is it where you are right now, and where are you watching from? I'm asking because what I'm about to share with you operates on a completely different timeline than the one you think you're living in, and your current moment, whether it's morning, afternoon, or the deep hours of night, is about to become the turning point where everything you believed about sleep, consciousness, and reality itself gets turned completely upside down. You see, most people think sleep is just this passive thing that happens when your body gets tired. But what if I told you that sleep is actually the most powerful transformation tool you've ever been given, and you've been wasting it your entire life? What if I told you that every single night, while you think you're just resting, your consciousness is actually traveling through dimensions of reality that hold the keys to completely reshaping your physical world without any effort from your waking mind whatsoever? Tonight, you're going to discover why ancient mystery schools called sleep the little death and why they considered it the most sacred practice for reality manipulation, because they knew something that modern science is just beginning to understand, something that governments and institutions have kept hidden from you, because if everyone knew the secret, the entire structure of control and limitation would crumble overnight. Welcome back to the Eternal Library. You've been told that your subconscious mind is just some storage facility for memories and automated functions, but that's the biggest lie ever perpetuated against humanity. Your subconscious isn't just a part of your mind, it's your direct connection to the quantum field of infinite possibilities, and when you enter sleep, you're not going unconscious at all, you're going superconscious. Every night, your awareness expands beyond the limitations of your physical senses and connects with the universal intelligence that's constantly reshaping reality according to the patterns you feed it. But here's the secret they don't want you to know. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what's happening in your physical reality and what's happening in your sleep state, which means that everything you experience, hear, and absorb while sleeping becomes direct programming for your reality creation. This is why the most enlightened beings throughout history, from the Tibetan dream yogis to the ancient Egyptian priests, spent decades mastering the art of conscious sleep, because they understood that the sleeping state is when the veil between dimensions becomes thinnest, and when your ability to literally rewrite the code of your existence becomes most potent. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how sometimes you wake up with solutions to problems you couldn't solve the day before? Have you ever experienced those moments where you wake up feeling completely different about a situation, as if something fundamental shifted overnight? That's not coincidence. That's your consciousness doing the work of reality transformation while your ego mind steps aside. But most people waste this incredible opportunity by either filling their minds with fear-based media before bed, or by simply falling asleep without any intentional programming, which means their subconscious just keeps recycling the same old patterns of limitation and struggle. What I'm about to share with you is going to change all of that, because you're going to learn how to turn your sleep into a powerful reality-shifting machine that works effortlessly while you rest. The ancient hermetic texts speak of a principle that states as above, so below, but what they really meant is that consciousness operates on multiple levels simultaneously, and what happens in the higher dimensions of awareness during sleep directly manifests in the lower dimensions of physical reality. The Tibetan Book of the Dead isn't really about death at all. It's an instruction manual for navigating the consciousness states that we enter every single night, because the Tibetan masters understood that sleep is just practice for the ultimate transition, and that mastering sleep consciousness means mastering reality itself. When you enter deep sleep, specifically during the REM phases, your brainwaves shift into theta and delta frequencies that are identical to the states achieved by the most advanced meditators and mystics, which means you're naturally accessing these profound states of consciousness every single night without even trying. But here's where it gets really interesting. Modern neuroscience has discovered that during REM sleep, your brain is actually more active than when you're awake, and it's not just randomly processing information. It's actively restructuring neural pathways, consolidating new beliefs, and quite literally rewiring your perception of reality. This is why hypnotherapy works so effectively, because it accesses that same receptive state that you naturally enter every night, But most people don't take advantage of this incredible opportunity for transformation. The ancient Egyptian mystery schools had a practice called temple sleep, where initiates would sleep in sacred chambers while specific frequencies and sacred teachings were played throughout the night, and they reported profound transformations in consciousness, healing miraculous physical conditions, and manifesting realities that seemed impossible from their previous state of awareness. The priests understood that consciousness is like water. It takes the shape of whatever container you put it in, and during sleep, you have the opportunity to reshape that container completely. What's even more fascinating is that recent studies in neuroscience have shown that information absorbed during sleep is actually processed more deeply and integrated more permanently than information learned while awake, because the brain's usual filtering mechanisms are offline, allowing for direct access to the neural networks that control your automatic responses, beliefs, and behavioral patterns. But here's the secret that the ancient masters knew that goes even deeper than just programming your subconscious. When you enter the deepest levels of sleep, your consciousness doesn't just stay confined to your individual mind, it expands and connects with what the mystics call the Akashic records, the quantum field of all possibilities, or what modern physics is beginning to understand as the unified field of consciousness that connects all things. This is where reality creation becomes effortless, because you're not trying to force change from the limited perspective of your individual will, you're aligning with the infinite intelligence that's already orchestrating the perfect unfolding of your highest potential. The Sufi mystics called this state fana, the dissolution of the ego into divine consciousness, and they achieved it through specific breathing techniques and sacred sound frequencies that naturally occur during deep sleep cycles. The Hindu tradition speaks of Turiya, the fourth state of consciousness beyond waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, where the individual self merges with universal consciousness and experiences the reality that mystics call the eternal now, where all possibilities exist simultaneously. This is the state where miracles happen effortlessly, where healing occurs spontaneously, and where your external reality begins to shift to match the frequency of your deepest truth and highest vision. The reason why most people don't experience this level of transformation is because they've been conditioned to believe that they need to struggle and effort their way to change. But the deepest spiritual teachings all point to the same truth. The most profound transformations happen when you stop trying so hard and allow the infinite intelligence of the universe to do the work through you. Sleep becomes the perfect vehicle for this surrender, because your ego mind literally cannot interfere with the process. The indigenous shamans of South America have known for thousands of years that the dream state is where the real work of healing and reality transformation takes place, which is why they developed sophisticated techniques for entering what they call lucid dreaming and dream healing, where they could consciously navigate the realm where thoughts become things instantly. They understood that the physical world is just the densest layer of a multidimensional reality, and that by working in the dream dimensions, you could create changes that would eventually filter down into physical manifestation with much less resistance than trying to change things from the physical level alone. The Australian Aboriginal concept of dream time isn't referring to some mythological past. It's describing the eternal present moment where all possibilities exist simultaneously, and which becomes accessible through specific states of consciousness that naturally occur during sleep cycles. These wisdom traditions all recognize that consciousness doesn't originate in the brain. The brain is just the receiver, like a radio tuning into different frequencies of awareness, and during sleep, the frequency naturally shifts to stations that are broadcasting from higher dimensions of reality where limitation and scarcity simply don't exist. This is why people often report receiving creative inspiration, problem solutions, and even prophetic visions during dreams, because they're tapping into levels of consciousness that have access to information beyond the limitations of linear time and three-dimensional space. The key is learning how to program your sleep cycles intentionally so that instead of just randomly tuning into whatever frequency happens to be available, you're deliberately choosing to align with the frequencies of abundance, health, love, and whatever reality you want to create. Let me share with you the real reason why this knowledge has been suppressed and kept hidden from the masses. If everyone understood the true power of sleep consciousness and began using it intentionally, decades of initiation to access these teachings. But you living in this time have an incredible advantage because the veil between dimensions is thinner now than it's ever been, and the frequencies needed for transformation are more easily accessible than ever before in human history. The science behind why listening while sleeping creates such profound change has to do with what neuroscientists call neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to literally rewire itself based on repeated exposure to new information and experiences. And during sleep, this neuroplasticity is enhanced exponentially because the brain is in a state of heightened receptivity and regeneration. When you expose your sleeping consciousness to positive affirmations, healing frequencies, or transformational teachings, you're essentially giving your brain new blueprints to work with during its nightly reconstruction process. And because there's no conscious resistance, these new patterns get integrated much more quickly and deeply than they would during waking hours. The research in sleep learning, or hypnopedia, has shown that simple information like vocabulary or basic facts can be absorbed during certain stages of sleep, but what the research hasn't fully explored yet is the profound impact that consciousness-expanding content can have on your entire reality matrix when absorbed during the deepest states of sleep consciousness. The frequency patterns of your brainwaves during different sleep cycles actually match the vibrational signatures of different dimensional realities, which means that by programming your sleep with specific content, you're literally tuning your consciousness to different dimensional frequencies where different laws of reality operate. In the alpha and theta states that occur during the transition into sleep, your consciousness becomes highly suggestible and creative, which is the perfect state for installing new beliefs and possibilities into your subconscious programming. In the delta waves of deep sleep, your individual consciousness merges with universal consciousness, creating the perfect conditions for miraculous healing, profound insights, and quantum leaps in awareness that can completely transform your waking reality. What's absolutely mind-blowing is that the ancient Sanskrit texts describe something called yoga nidra, which literally means yogic sleep, and it's considered to be one of the most powerful practices for achieving enlightenment because it allows you to remain conscious while your body and mind enter the deepest states of rest and receptivity. The practitioners of Yoga Nidra report experiencing what they describe as effortless transformation, where profound changes in consciousness and reality happen without any struggle or force, simply through maintaining awareness while the natural intelligence of the universe does the work of healing, awakening, and reality creation. This is exactly what happens when you learn to program your sleep intentionally. You're essentially practicing a form of Yoga Nidra where your conscious intention sets the direction, and then you surrender completely to allow the infinite intelligence of your deeper self to orchestrate the transformation while you rest. The Tibetan Buddhist practice of dream yoga takes this even further, teaching practitioners how to maintain lucid awareness throughout all states of consciousness, including deep sleep, so that they can actively participate in the reality creation process that's happening in the quantum dimensions of awareness. These advanced practitioners report being able to heal physical ailments, resolve karmic patterns, receive teachings from enlightened beings, and even travel to different dimensions of reality, all while their physical body remains peacefully asleep. But you don't need to become a Tibetan monk to access these states. The same consciousness that they're working with is the same consciousness that you have access to every single night, and with the right programming and intention, you can begin experiencing profound transformations immediately. The reason why change feels so difficult when you try to force it during waking hours is because you're working against the grain of how consciousness actually operates. You're trying to use your limited ego mind to override patterns that were installed in your subconscious through repetition and emotional intensity. But the ego mind simply doesn't have the power to make those kinds of deep changes because it operates from a place of separation and struggle. But when you work with the natural cycles of consciousness during sleep, you're tapping into the same creative force that grows your hair, heals cuts on your skin, and beats your heart without any conscious effort on your part. The same intelligence that knows how to create galaxies and orchestrate the dance of atoms and molecules is the same intelligence that's available to transform your reality effortlessly while you sleep. The mystics throughout history have all pointed to this same truth. The deepest transformations happen through surrender and alignment with the natural flow of universal intelligence, not through struggle and force. Sleep becomes the perfect metaphor and vehicle for this kind of transformation because it requires you to let go completely, to trust the process, and to allow something greater than your individual will to take over and do the work for you. This is why people often wake up feeling completely different after a night of profound dreams, or why solutions to complex problems seem to just appear after sleeping on them. It's because during sleep, you're accessing levels of consciousness that have a much broader perspective and greater creative power than your everyday waking awareness. Now, let me tell you about the specific mechanism through which listening while sleeping creates lasting change in your reality. Your subconscious mind is like a highly sophisticated recording device that's constantly absorbing and storing every piece of information from your environment, and during sleep, this recording process becomes even more precise and permanent because the usual mental chatter and resistance mechanisms are offline. When you expose your sleeping consciousness to carefully crafted affirmations, healing frequencies, or empowering beliefs, you're essentially overriding old programming with new programming. But unlike conscious learning, which requires repetition and effort, subconscious programming happens through direct absorption and immediate integration. The acoustic patterns of human speech carry vibrational frequencies that resonate with different chakras and energy centers in your body, and when these frequencies are absorbed during sleep, they create physical changes in your nervous system that alter how you perceive and respond to reality. The binaural beats and specific sound frequencies that enhance sleep learning work by synchronizing your brainwaves with the optimal states for transformation, creating coherent patterns of neural activity that make your entire system more receptive to positive change. But here's the secret that makes this even more powerful. Your subconscious mind doesn't just absorb the literal content of what you're hearing, it also absorbs the emotional and energetic frequency behind the words, which means that when you're listening to content that was created from a state of genuine love, wisdom, and empowerment, you're absorbing those high-frequency states directly into your own energy system. The ancient Egyptians built their entire civilization around the understanding that consciousness operates through harmonic frequencies, which is why they constructed the pyramids with such precise acoustic properties and why their mystery schools used specific sound combinations to induce altered states of consciousness in their initiates. The sacred chamber inside the Great Pyramid was designed to amplify certain frequencies that naturally occur during deep meditation and sleep, and initiates would spend nights inside these chambers while specific tones and sacred teachings were resonated through the stone structures, creating profound transformations in consciousness that prepared them for higher levels of spiritual initiation. The Celtic Druids practiced something similar with their sacred stone circles, using the natural acoustic properties of these sites to create resonance chambers where they could access higher states of consciousness through sound and sleep practices. The Aboriginal songlines aren't just mythological stories, they're precise acoustic maps that describe the vibrational frequencies that hold the land and its creatures in harmony, and the Aboriginal elders used these sounds during dream practices to maintain their connection with the spiritual dimensions that interpenetrate physical reality. All of these ancient traditions understood something that modern science is just beginning to rediscover, that sound and consciousness are intimately connected, and that by working with specific sound frequencies during receptive states like sleep, you can literally tune your consciousness to different dimensional frequencies where different possibilities become available. This is the real reason why mantras, chanting, and sacred music have been central to every mystical tradition throughout history. They're technologies for consciousness transformation that work by aligning your vibrational frequency with the frequencies of whatever reality you want to experience. The breakthrough understanding that changes everything is recognizing that your external reality is not separate from your internal state of consciousness. What you experience out there is literally a reflection of the predominant patterns running in your subconscious mind. which means that by changing those subconscious patterns, you automatically change your external reality without having to manipulate or struggle with external circumstances. This is why the law of attraction often doesn't work for people who try to practice it only during waking hours. They're trying to use their conscious mind to override subconscious patterns, but the conscious mind only controls about 5% of your daily experience while the subconscious controls the other 95%. So unless you're working directly with the subconscious, your reality will continue to reflect your old programming no matter how much positive thinking you do during the day. But when you program your subconscious during sleep, you're working with that 95% directly, which means the changes happen at the foundational level where your reality is actually being created. The quantum physics principle of observer effect shows that consciousness literally collapses waves of possibility into specific experiences through the act of observation, but most people don't realize that your subconscious is doing this observing and collapsing 24/7 based on whatever patterns are stored there. By programming your sleep with the patterns of the reality you want to experience, you're literally training your consciousness to observe and collapse different possibilities from the quantum field, which means your external world has to shift to match your new internal programming. It's not magic, it's physics. The most profound aspect of this process is understanding that you're not trying to get something you don't have. You're remembering and returning to the state of consciousness that you naturally are when all the learned limitations are cleared away. Every spiritual tradition speaks of this return to your original nature, whether they call it enlightenment, self-realization, or coming home to your true self, and what they're really describing is the recognition that limitation and struggle are learned behaviors that can be unlearned, revealing the natural state of consciousness that is already whole, abundant, and free. Sleep becomes the perfect vehicle for this remembering because during deep sleep, all the learned identities and limitations temporarily dissolve, and you return to the pure awareness that you are beyond all the stories and patterns you've accumulated throughout your life. This recognition naturally occurs during the deepest states of sleep when individual identity dissolves into universal being. By programming your sleep with reminders of your true nature and highest potential, you're not trying to become something you're not. You're simply clearing away the accumulated beliefs and patterns that have obscured the magnificent being that you already are. What makes sleep programming so incredibly effective is that it bypasses all the mental resistance and doubt that normally prevents transformation. When you're asleep, your analytical mind can't argue with the new information or create reasons why change is impossible, so the new programming gets installed directly without interference from limiting beliefs about what's possible for you. The ego mind is like a security guard that's been programmed to maintain your current identity at all costs, even if that identity includes suffering and limitation. But during sleep, that security guard goes off duty, allowing new possibilities to enter and take root in your consciousness without any resistance. This is why many people report that their most profound insights and breakthroughs come through dreams or upon waking. It's because during sleep, their consciousness was free to explore possibilities that their waking mind would normally reject as unrealistic or impossible. The key is learning how to intentionally guide this natural process by programming your sleep with the specific frequencies, beliefs, and visions that support your highest evolution, rather than just leaving it up to chance or allowing it to be influenced by whatever random thoughts or fears happen to be in your mind when you fall asleep. When you take conscious control of your sleep programming, you're essentially becoming a co-creator with the universe, using the natural cycles of consciousness to deliberately evolve yourself and your reality in the direction of your deepest desires and highest potential. The transformation happens so effortlessly through sleep programming because you're working with the natural intelligence of your body and consciousness rather than against it. Your nervous system is designed to process and integrate new information during sleep cycles. Your brain is designed to rewire itself based on repeated exposure to new patterns. And your consciousness is designed to expand and evolve through exposure to higher frequencies and possibilities. When you align your conscious intentions with these natural processes, transformation becomes as effortless as growth and healing, because you're not forcing change. You're simply providing the optimal conditions for the change that wants to happen naturally. This is the same principle that allows a seed to become a flower. The seed doesn't struggle to become a flower. It simply needs the right conditions of soil, water, and sunlight, and then the intelligence within the seed does all the work of transformation automatically. Your consciousness is like that seed, containing within it all the potential for whatever you want to become or experience, and sleep programming provides the optimal conditions for that potential to unfold effortlessly into your reality. The ancient alchemists understood this principle when they spoke of the philosopher's stone that could transform base metals into gold. They were really describing the consciousness that can transform limitation into freedom, struggle into flow, and suffering into joy. And they knew that this transformation happened most easily when the ego mind was out of the way, which is exactly the state you enter during deep sleep. But here's what makes this moment in history so extraordinary. Never before have human beings had access to such sophisticated tools for consciousness transformation while simultaneously experiencing such an urgent need for rapid evolution and awakening. The frequencies of the planet itself are shifting, creating natural conditions that make consciousness expansion easier and more accessible than ever before, and at the same time, the old systems and structures that were based on limitation and separation are breaking down, forcing humanity to either evolve or experience increasing chaos and difficulty. This means that the techniques for transformation that once required decades of monastic training can now create profound results in weeks or months, and the sleep programming methods that were once secret teachings available only to initiated mystics are now accessible to anyone who's ready to take responsibility for their own evolution. You're living in a time when the veil between dimensions is at its thinnest, making it easier to access higher states of consciousness and to manifest changes in physical reality, and your willingness to explore these teachings is actually part of the larger awakening that's happening throughout humanity right now. The fact that you're drawn to this information is not an accident. It's because your soul knows that you came here at this time to participate in the great transformation that's occurring on the planet. And part of your purpose is to master these tools of consciousness so that you can not only transform your own reality but also contribute to the collective awakening by being a living example of what becomes possible when someone learns to work consciously with the infinite creative power that's available during sleep. The most beautiful aspect of transformation through sleep is that it happens with such natural ease that you often don't even realize the profound changes that are occurring until you look back and notice that your entire reality has shifted. Relationships that were once difficult become harmonious, financial struggles begin to resolve effortlessly, health issues start improving without any forced interventions, and opportunities begin appearing that align perfectly with your deepest desires and highest purpose. This is because sleep transformation works at the causal level of consciousness where reality is being created moment by moment. So instead of trying to change effects after they've already manifested, you're changing the causes themselves, which means all the effects naturally align with your new internal programming. People often describe this as feeling like their life is finally flowing instead of being a constant struggle, as if invisible barriers have been removed and they're now moving with the current of universal intelligence rather than swimming against it. This shift happens so organically that it can feel almost magical, but it's really just the natural result of aligning your consciousness with the principles that govern how reality actually works, rather than fighting against those principles through force and struggle. When you understand that your external world is a reflection of your internal programming, and you learn how to update that programming through sleep, then changing your reality becomes as natural and effortless as changing your mind. Because at the deepest level, that's all you're really doing. You're simply changing the mind that's dreaming your reality into existence moment by moment. So tonight, as you prepare for sleep, remember that you're not just going to rest your body, you're entering the most sacred and powerful time for transformation that's available to you as a conscious being. Set your intention clearly before you close your eyes, whether it's for healing, abundance, love, creativity, or spiritual awakening, and trust that the infinite intelligence that orchestrates the entire universe is available to work with you during those precious hours when your ego steps aside and your true self is free to create without limitation. Your sleep is not downtime. It's the most productive time of your entire day, when the real work of consciousness evolution and reality transformation happens effortlessly while you surrender to the natural wisdom that knows exactly how to give you everything you've ever truly desired. The only thing you need to do is give permission for this transformation to occur, provide the clear intentions and positive programming for your subconscious to work with, and then get out of the way and let the miracle of consciousness do what it does best. Create realities that exceed your wildest dreams through the simple, natural process of conscious sleep. If this resonates with you and you're ready to experience the profound transformation that's waiting for you through conscious sleep programming, remember that your journey into higher consciousness is just beginning, and every night offers you a new opportunity to literally reprogram your reality while you rest. Keep exploring these deeper dimensions of your own infinite potential, and remember that you are far more powerful than you've ever been taught to believe.